In the winter of 1944, somewhere over the frozen skies of Nazi-occupied Europe, a decorated American fighter pilot radioed back to base with 3 words that no one could explain. "I am following." He never said what. His wing commander tried to reach him. Silence. For 11 agonizing minutes, First Lieutenant Edward Eddie Hargrove of the 415th Night Fighter Squadron vanished from all radio contact, chasing something through the black sky that his own squadron called, in hushed voices, Foo Fighters. And when he came back, he was never quite the same man again. This is his story, and until now, it has never been fully told. Welcome back to Untold WW2 Diaries, the channel where the greatest generation finally gets to speak. Today's story comes from a personal diary recovered in 2009 from a farmhouse estate sale in Knoxville, Tennessee. The diary belonged to the family of Lieutenant Edward James Hargrove, a 24-year-old pilot from Chattanooga who flew night missions over Germany and France with the legendary 415th Night Fighter Squadron, one of the most battle-hardened, sleep-deprived, adrenaline-soaked units in the entire United States Army Air Forces. Inside that worn, leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed, its ink faded but legible, were entries that made the family's skin crawl, entries that described encounters no military briefing had ever prepared Eddie Hargrove for. Encounters with lights, orange orbs, silent, fast, and completely impossible. For decades, the family kept it private. They feared ridicule. They feared that the official military record, which listed Eddie's 1944 incident as navigation anomaly due to fatigue, would be used to dismiss him. But here, on Untold WW2 Diaries, we believe these men deserve to be heard. So tonight, turn down the lights, because this story is about to take you somewhere very few people have ever gone. 30,000 feet above the war, into the dark, into the unexplained. To understand what Eddie Hargrove saw that night, you first have to understand who Eddie Hargrove was. Born in 1920 in Chattanooga, Tennessee, Eddie was the son of a railroad engineer and a schoolteacher. He grew up during the Depression, lean years, hard years, years that built men out of boys before boys were ready. By 16, he was working weekends at a mechanic's shop. By 18, he was rebuilding engines from scratch. When Pearl Harbor was bombed on December 7th, 1941, Eddie was 21 years old. He enlisted the following Monday morning. Didn't hesitate. Didn't look back. He washed through basic training at Fort Jackson, showed a mechanical aptitude that made his commanding officers sit up and pay attention, and within 18 months had earned his wings as a P-61 Black Widow pilot, one of the most advanced night fighters the Army Air Forces had ever deployed. The P-61, just saying its name meant something. A twin-engine, twin-boom aircraft bristling with .50 caliber machine guns and 20mm cannons. Built for darkness. Built for hunting. It was a beast of a machine, and Eddie Hargrove loved every bolt of it. By late 1944, he had flown over 40 combat missions. He had 2 confirmed enemy aircraft kills. He had received a commendation for pulling his badly damaged aircraft back to base after a direct anti-aircraft hit over Stuttgart, landing on 1 engine, 1 wheel, and what his crew chief called pure Tennessee stubbornness. He wrote home often. His letters were warm, funny, full of vivid detail. He described French farmhouses and German thunderstorms. He wrote about his crew, his radar operator, Sergeant Dale Whitmore from Ohio, who he called the best set of ears in the ETO. He wrote about missing his mother's cornbread, about the cold, about dreams. But in his diary, he wrote about something else. Something he couldn't put in letters home. Something that had started 2 weeks before the night that changed everything. It began on November 22nd, 1944. Eddie's diary entry for that night is calm, almost clinical. The handwriting is steady, but the words are anything but. Seen again tonight. 2 lights, orange-red, moving alongside us for approximately 4 minutes at our speed, our altitude. No engine noise reported by ground crew. No radar signature on Dale's set. Reported to Ops. Told the log as reflection phenomenon. I know what reflections look like. This was not a reflection. He wasn't alone. Throughout the fall and winter of 1944, American and Allied air crews flying night missions over Germany and occupied France were reporting the same thing. Glowing orbs, orange, red, sometimes white, that paced aircraft at impossible speeds, made maneuvers no known aircraft could execute, and then simply vanished. The pilots called them Foo Fighters, a term borrowed from a popular comic strip, Smokey Stover, in which the phrase "where there's food, there's fire" was a running gag. The name stuck because in the pitch-dark, 30,000-foot terror of a combat mission, you needed something to call the things that were following you. Because they were following. That much was undeniable. Some pilots tried to ignore them. Some reported them up the chain of command. Some, like Eddie, kept meticulous notes in personal diaries, documenting what they saw with the precision of trained military observers. And some, on one heart-pounding night in December 1944, decided not to just observe. Some decided to chase. Eddie Hargrove's diary entry for December 14th, 1944 is the longest of any in the journal. 12 full pages, written in what his family described as a shaking, urgent hand, as if the words couldn't come out fast enough. It began as a routine night patrol. Eddie and Dale were flying a sweep northeast of Strasbourg, France, scouting for Luftwaffe night bombers that had been harassing Allied forward positions. The weather was brutal. Cloud cover at 15,000, icing above 20, a half-moon cutting through occasional breaks in the overcast. At 2,217 hours, Dale called it out first. Lieutenant, 11 o'clock. 2 contacts, not on scope. Eddie banked left, and there they were. 2 orange orbs, perfectly round, perfectly steady, moving in formation approximately 200 yards off his left wing at an exact matching airspeed of 310 miles per hour. He wrote, "They were the color of a bonfire, not blinking, not flickering, just burning, steady and silent and wrong. My first instinct was to report and evade. My second instinct, the one that won, was different. His second instinct was the instinct of a fighter pilot. He turned into them. What followed were the 11 minutes that would define Eddie Hargrove's life. He pushed the throttles forward. The Black Widow surged. 320, 340, 360 miles per hour, screaming through the dark, chasing 2 lights that should not exist. And here is where the diary becomes extraordinary. The orbs accelerated. Instantly. No build-up, no lag. They simply moved faster, maintaining exact distance as if they were aware of him, as if they were measuring him. Eddie pushed harder. 380. He was redlining the engines now. Dale was calling out airspeed warnings behind him. The airframe was shaking. Ice was building on the leading edges of the wings. And then the orb stopped, dead still, hovering. In the black sky, 30,000 feet above a burning continent, 2 orange spheres hung motionless and waited. Eddie wrote, "I leveled out at 300 yards distance. I had my guns hot. God help me, I had my guns hot, and I was thinking about firing. And then, I cannot explain this, and I won't try to. One of the orbs rotated, slowly, like it was looking at me. And I felt something I have felt in combat before. I felt seen. He did not fire. For 40 seconds. He counted them. Eddie Hargrove and whatever those orbs existed in a silent standoff above the war. Two American guns pointed at two impossible lights over Nazi Germany. The world below is blazing. The world above, utterly still. Then they were gone. Not fading, not accelerating. Gone. Instantaneous. As if they had never been. Dale's voice came over the intercom, quiet and shaken. "You got any of that on film, Lieutenant?" Eddie had forgotten to trigger the gun camera. 12 years of mechanical instinct, and he had forgotten to trigger the gun camera. He flew home in silence. He landed. He sat in the cockpit for 20 minutes before the ground crew had to help him out. His report to intelligence that night listed the sighting as unexplained aerial phenomena. It was classified, stamped restricted, and buried. But Eddie wrote every word of it down. Eddie Hargrove finished the war. He flew 18 more missions after December 14th. He was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross in March 1945. He came home to Tennessee in September of that year, thinner, quieter, with eyes that his mother said looked like they had seen the inside of something she wasn't meant to understand. He married a woman named Ruth and Sellers in 1947. They had 3 children. He went back to mechanics, eventually running his own garage in Chattanooga for 30 years. By all outward measures, he was a normal man leading a normal post-war life. But he kept the diary, and he kept writing in it, even through the 1950s and 1960s, returning again and again to December 14th, 1944, trying to find the words, trying to make it make sense. In a 1971 entry, he wrote, "I have decided it doesn't need to make sense." The war itself didn't make sense. Men dying in frozen fields didn't make sense. Maybe there are things in this world that are simply beyond the categories we've been given. And maybe the bravest thing isn't to understand them. It's to face them anyway. Eddie Hargrove passed away in 1988 at the age of 68. Ruth and kept the diary in a cedar chest until her own passing in 2007. Their daughter, Patricia, found it, could not bring herself to throw it away. And so it ended up in that estate sale in Knoxville, where a retired history teacher named Gerald Marsh paid $4 for it, read the first page, and immediately called a friend who studies wartime aerial phenomena. That friend shared the diary with our research team, and now it is shared with you. Eddie Hargrove was shaken. He admitted it in 12 handwritten pages in a diary he never intended anyone to read. He sat in that cockpit and stared at something he could not name, and he chose not to fire, and he chose to come home, and he chose to keep living with the mystery locked inside him like a splinter too deep to reach. That is courage, not the absence of fear or confusion, but the willingness to carry both and still show up, still flying, still love your wife and raise your children and run your garage and occasionally, late at night, open a worn diary and try one more time to put the unspeakable into words. Whatever those lights were over Strasbourg in December 1944, Nazi secret weapons, atmospheric phenomena, something else entirely, we may never know. Declassified military documents confirm that the 415th Night Fighter Squadron filed multiple Foo Fighter reports in late 1944, and that the U.S. military launched a quiet investigation that produced no conclusions. That story deserves to be told. If this hidden diary gave you chills, smash that like button right now. Drop a comment. What do you think really happened? or share your own family WW2 story below. And if you want more Untold Diaries from the front lines, subscribe to Untold WW2 Diaries and hit the bell so you never miss a single hidden story. Thanks for watching. Their courage lives on through us.